This time on the David Freiburger channel, I am running Route 66 in California, starting in Needles, right next to the Arizona border, to Santa Monica. This is not going to be like a regular Route 66 travelogue because I am junk hunting. I'm going to find all the great old cars, the cool old rundown gas stations, the buildings, the signs. It is going to be an amazing trip. Here's the setup. I have driven every inch of old Route 66, not I-40, from St. Louis all the way to the Arizona border. I have not driven it in California, oddly enough. It's where I live. And so that's what's gonna happen in this episode. You know Route 66, it's the mother road. So many stories about it. It runs from Chicago all the way to Santa Monica, California, and it's famous for the 30s when the Okies were escaping the Dust Bowl and coming out to the land of fruit and honey in California. Actually, that expression was used in the 40s when people were trying to entice the returning servicemen and others to come to California. Of course, now everyone's in California. And also, we know that in the 50s and 60s, Route 66 was the ultimate American road trip, and it really is today too. What I'm going to do is a little bit different than the normal travelogue that you see on this deal, because I'm gonna be doing all of the old route, and I'm gonna be searching for the old garages, the old cars, the abandoned gas stations, the cool old signs, stuff that you don't typically see in the thousands of books and videos that have covered Route 66. And I'm gonna do it all in my trusty 1990 Suburban. On the way out here, it turned 205,000 miles. So let's hope that's not a problem. I'm at the Colorado River, right next to the train bridge. Some of these bridges over here were part of Route 66 way back into the teens. So I'm gonna have a look at that and then head out to the garden spot of Needles, California. Here's the sign for the old Route 66 motel in Needles, reportedly built in about 1947. This sign is super famous. Now let's cross the street over here next to the Route 66 motel to Carty's Camp. Carty's Camp, reportedly from the 20s. And of course, in the front is the first cool old gas station of my trip. You know, I stop and look at a lot of those. Let's look around. If you're looking at an old building and you wonder if it's a cool old gas station, this is a dead giveaway. The island where formerly the gas pumps would stand. I'm going in the back of Carty's Camp here. This place was built in the 20s and it was originally a cabin court. You'll see all these cabins up here. And reportedly, the place was used in the movie The Grapes of Wrath, although I have not scanned the movie to find out if that's in fact true. But man, it is a cool old place to imagine people coming through here on their travels in the 20s and 30s, 40s. I don't know when it closed down. Ooh, is this a cool old tire right here? No, that is a cool new tire. Pretty good. All right, over here, we're gonna investigate the gas station that was adjacent to Carty's Camp. You can see the Route 66 hotel sign through the opening here. Let's have a look. Is it super cool? Not that many cool, really old things in here, but you can certainly imagine what it was like working in this station way back in the day. Look at the desk over here. Probably this has been there longer than the 70s, but I just imagine somebody running one of those old credit card machines with the carbon paper that you run over the credit card. There's a cool old tire. That is a good ancient off-road tire. Square body for sale. They want $2,500 for this thing, and it's a C10, not a 3/4 ton. The problem is it's a 77, so it's not smog exempt in California. Bummer. This is the Harvey House in Needles. This is named for a guy named Fred Harvey, who in the 1800s, mid-1800s, realized that the railroad tracks needed a place to stop, and he opened up a bunch of restaurants and sort of respites all along the way. My favorite era of the Harvey House would be post-war, or actually during World War II, when they would serve all of the troops that were getting moved all over the country. And that would have especially happened here because this is part of Patton's Desert Training Center. And so there were all kinds of troops coming in and out of here all the time, including, reportedly, Patton himself. This place looks cool from the train side, not that cool from the street side. It was originally built in 1906. It burned down. They reopened it in 1908. When I first started coming here, when I dropped by a couple times anyway in the 1980s, it was nearly ransacked. It was wide open. There was some stuff going on inside, but you could walk all through it. Now, fortunately, it's been restored and it's in good shape. But it's fun to look at and think of the history. The other thing I should tell you about Fred Harvey is that he's credited as being the first chain restaurant guy in the United States. Also, he created the Harvey Girls, which were super clean-cut hostesses who took care of all of the restaurants. It became a big deal culturally. Look it up. Meanwhile, let's go see some more rundown trash. This liquor store in Needles is a great example of googie architecture that was so popular in the 50s, 60s, even into the 70s. It was founded by John Lautner, who designed a place in Hollywood that was called Googie's. It was a coffee shop. That place is gone now, but it reminds me of the Norm's coffee shop in nearby Hollywood anyway, that is becoming a Raising Cane's chicken. Not good. Here are 3 old gas stations in a row. That one's kind of googie architecture, apparently a union. And then up here, this has become some sort of business. Looks like a towing place, but you can see those spires and the overhang. See that Route 66 building? I try not to shoot stuff that's touristy Route 66, but that's okay. It's right in a row here. There's another gas station coming up after the weed dispensary. And finally, the Texaco. That one is probably the coolest. I had to come back to look at the Union Station. It's just so good. Let's have a look. That's it for Needles, California. It was pretty good. Saw some great stuff, especially that epic old truck, 5-window with the color TV sign on the hood and the appliance company painted on the door. That thing was great. That's the stuff you've got to see when you're in these small towns, because that's going to go away. Actually, everything's going to go away. Buildings will get knocked down, places will go out of business. You got to hit the road when you can. You know, when you're in Needles, do not fail to go to the Wagon Wheel Restaurant. This place has been here since 1978. It's really good. I don't know why they have a gorilla on the roof, but don't ask questions. I will keep going on historic Route 66, taking the small roads as much as I can, though in some places it's wiped out by I-40 and you gotta take I-40. The next thing I'm gonna see is Homer and Goffs. I'm about to pull into the tiny town of Goffs, California, Goffs. This was a railroad terminal at one time, and it was a really big deal. It was also overcrowded and packed when Patton's Desert Training Center was here. Now there's really nothing left of it except for a neat old railroad display and also an old schoolhouse that has a lot of other sort of relics on the property. The schoolhouse wasn't open when I got there, but it's a museum with all sorts of Mojave Desert stuff. Yeah, Goffs was a major railroad center and kind of still is. There have been nonstop trains going by ever since I've been here. Man, I was driving out of Goffs and glanced over and saw this. You know what? The southwestern desert is just filled with old homesteads with great, cool, abandoned trucks like that. Most of them have big no trespassing signs. This did not. So we're going to explore just a little bit, but I think this stuff's cool. This is the type of thing you never see on an average Route 66 video. Let's have a look. This place is awesome. There was the Diamond T truck out front with all that equipment on it. This is a 1972 Ford truck. I know that because the front clip's sitting over there. A 1957 Studebaker wagon, 2-door. That's gotta be unusual. I'm not good enough on Studebakers to know what the trim level is. You know, they had Commander and some other stuff like that. But over here is the Rambler Country Club. The crazy thing about the design on these cars is they enclosed the front wheels. They're nuts. I remember there was a guy who used to race one of these at Bonneville. Cool stuff. Ooh, more trucks. Ooh, this is a Plymouth van. You don't see that very often. That's cool, instead of a Dodge. That's 56, 55 Pontiac front clip and a dent side truck. Man, non-stop ringing of the train horns around here. Problem is the sun is going down and I'm not sure how much more time I'm gonna have tonight. I might have to go into Barstow to get a hotel and then backtrack, but I'm not sure yet. So I'm gonna boogie. As it turns out, yes, I had to drive all the way back to Barstow in order to spend the night. I had already reserved a room here, and I could have driven back to Needles and it would have been less distance, but I wanted to save the $100, so I came all the way here. So now I have to drive all the way back to where I left off at Route 66. So next time you see me, I will be there. But first, let's calculate the gas mileage on this thing. What do you think? 10, 7, 12? We'll find out when it fills up. This thing does have the, I think, optional 35-gallon tank. A watched gas pump does not fill. We're at 20 gallons. I think I'm gonna do gas station breakfast this morning, or maybe fast food. Normally I like to find the cool small diner, but I gotta hit the road. You ever try the biscuits and gravy at every single little diner you go to? I always figure that's the true test. That's like the litmus of figuring out if it's a good diner or not. You just get that B&G. If they don't have like the right biscuit, it's a fail. The gravy's gotta have those chunks of sausage in there. Can't be too white, gotta have a little pepper in it. 28 gallons in, 31.648, and I have driven 336 miles. So, 31.648, have you already done it in your head? 10.616 mpg. It's about par for the course. I'm gonna hit the road, drive an hour and a half, and the next time you see me, I will be back on glorious Route 66. Don't you hate it when you have to go inside for the receipt? Oh, it asked me. Yes. Now, will it be out of paper? Yes. Don't you hate it when you have to go inside for the receipt? Back to the plot. I am on Route 66. If you're familiar with the area, here's what I did. I took I-40 back east and then get off at Kelbaker and came all the way down to 66. Now the thing is, if you do that and turn east, you end up with a road closure. And actually, last night when I was heading west on 40, I could have taken a big loop that comes down on 66 and been on that side of the road over there and seen some other towns. But because of mileage and time, I ended up just cutting it off right here. Now, let me show you a little something. As I head along Route 66, and as I did before when I did the other half of the country, I'm following these two books, which I recommend. Easy 66 Guide for Travelers, Jerry McClanahan. 66 Adventure Book, Drew Knowles. So I recommend those. Now, I'm gonna give the old Suburban some Brontosaurus au jus. It's about a quart low. Square body problems. Let me pull the cable again. This says high mileage oil. Huh, I would have thought it would have been new. Now, even though this road is closed, as I advised you, I'm gonna just sort of ignore that and take the little dirt road bypass and see what I can see down there. Oh, here's a fun fact that I learned from those books that I showed you. The towns along here heading east are in alphabetical order. There's A, Amboy, B, I don't know, C, Cadiz, which I think I'm gonna see right up here, D, Danby, E, Essex, F, Fenner, G, Goffs, H, Homer, and I think that's the end of it. Wow, I remembered that. Okay, let's take a dirt road. As it turns out, there are a lot of washouts on this road. So I'm in the middle of nowhere, crossing sand washes that I probably shouldn't be. But you know what? They're no match for the unstoppable Suburban. Okay, now a little bit of twisty with no lockers, no posi, no nothing, and no problem. Ooh, this might not be good. Okay, that is soft sand. I can go over here. I think that's better. Okay, I lived again. I made it west to east all the way on Old 66 from Amboy to Essex. And man, I went through a ton of washouts. It looked like flash floods and age had wiped out a whole bunch of bridges, but fortunately the Suburban was able to negotiate it. Now I did all of that to come here. I had been to this spot maybe as long as 40 years ago when it was nowhere near this dilapidated. But I've seen pictures of it online. I knew it was still standing. I wanted to visit it before it was gone. This place has a ton of great old lettering and patina and character. And as usual, I can always stand here and just imagine all of the people who came through here and what they were doing and how their road trip changed their lives in one way or another. People coming, moving to California, people getting out of California, one way or another. They were here in their 32 Ford, their 40 Ford, their 55 Chevy, their 70 Hemi Cuda, who knows. One of the coolest things that I noticed already is that this place used to have a sign all the way up across the top of the building there, and it's laying on the ground over here. Somebody must have tried to save it when it fell down. You can see it. It says breakfast, lunch, dinner, and cafe, and you can see through the old lettering into some even older lettering. Speaking of lettering, I have to go look at some stuff because for some reason I just geek out over old hand-painted signs and decals and things. Let's look. This is the old gas station island. Look at this pole. I would love to go home and try and find a photo of the old sign that used to sit on top of that thing. Wow. Look at all the old bottle caps stuck in the blacktop here, asphalt, whatever it is. I have to wonder, did they do that on purpose when the place was new? There's a bunch of them. Well, I'm pulling away from that old cafe and gas station. I love it so much. I had to look around it a lot because I paid my dues to get here, and I figure I may never see it again. You know, I might not take the effort to get out here, or if I did, it could be gone. Could have fallen in, could have been destroyed. You always have to take the opportunity. And right now, I'm cruising around Essex just a little bit more, and I am seeing a great bump side. Whoa, that's cool. That was Essex, pretty good. And now I am gonna suffer through the long way back to Amboy, well, Cadiz and to Amboy, on this road that has so many washouts, and I'm going four-wheeling again. I'm gonna count the dead bridges this time. There's one. I am gonna time lapse you all the way back to Cadiz. I made it. It was actually 13 washouts in the middle of the road, but the Suburban dominated them. Actually, if you had a passenger car, you could do most of them, except for one that's really sandy. I have to correct myself. A couple times in this video, I have referred to Cadiz. That's actually further south. And there is a Cadiz summit, apparently, that is just a clapped out old building, unfortunately covered with graffiti. This whole section of the road is one of those where the berm is covered with rocks that people have spelled their names out. I don't know how that got started or why it's a thing, but it is a thing. There's miles of it. So it's not Cadiz Summit, it's not Cadiz, it's in fact Chambliss. Right now, I'm at a place called Roadrunner Retreat, which was a gas station, as you can see, and also a big restaurant. I read the sign over there, and it told me that this place opened in 1962. And unfortunately, the restaurant that says something retreat on the side, probably Roadrunner Retreat, burned down in 2020. Another reason why you have to get out here and see this stuff when you can. But the Googie gas station is still here. I'm gonna go have a look at that, although this is fenced off, so I can't go too far. And I made it to the cliche, Amboy, California, and the Roy's Motel and Cafe sign. It is pretty radical, but man, it is overused in Route 66 photos and books and travelogues. It is cool, but there's other stuff in Amboy. I really dig the little cafe, which was obviously a former gas station. Right next to Roy's is the Amboy School. The sign for Amboy School is really good, and it's hard to imagine there was ever enough people locally to justify that school, but it's pretty good. There's a dilapidated hotel. Of course, you don't want to miss the Peace and Love Carmen Gia. And of course, there's the Shoe Tree, or shoe post. What's strange is, for some reason, that's a California desert thing. There's shoe trees and underwear trees and stuff like that all over the place. Back to the Roy's sign, it was restored recently, which I think is cool, and they lit it back up. I'm weird though, because I really like stuff that has that patina of age instead of being restored, but nonetheless, I'm glad that it didn't just run into the ground and that it's still here. I'm gonna go explore a little bit more of Amboy because I think there's some cool stuff over by the railroad tracks. There is a plane in the middle of the street. There is actually a plane driving down the middle of the street in Amboy. That I didn't see coming. That is awesome. That's the greatest thing I've ever seen in Amboy. Right behind the Roy's sign, of course. Okay, that was really good. right, that was Amboy. Now I'm moving on. I think the next big stop is going to be Ludlow. Maybe there's more things to see between here and there. But I'm going to boogie because once again, I'm chasing daylight. Over here, the big black mound is Amboy Crater, the volcanic structure. And you know what? There's big salt mines and salt fields here too. I've made it to Ludlow. This used to be one of the cooler towns along the route. I especially love this old gas station and auto repair shop. And so I'm gonna give you some details over here of this building where it's got some cool old signs that are still there that talk about arc welding and the parts you can replace on your car and gasoline and all that other kind of stuff. It's pretty neat. But I wanna show you a couple more buildings and the Ludlow Cemetery that's pretty cool. I found this old hood and see all these cans on the ground? This is really common in the Southwest where you find old gas stations. They had no trash pickup or anything like that. So they just dumped everything, probably in the, out back, like a couple hundred feet from the place. You'll see oil cans and stuff out here. I showed you the cemetery here in Ludlow. I usually like to walk through those things because you can get a sense of the community way back when. There weren't a lot of gravestones there that had any information on them. There was one that was very sad. Some kid who only lived 3 years in the 20s. That stuff still makes you think about how rough it was out here in those days. Also, right here, there is a string of old American cars that's been here forever. I remember shooting an episode of Roadkill with Finnegan and coming up here and looking at this Plymouth Duster, the orange car right there, and kind of thinking maybe I could do some parts off of it, but I didn't take anything. Meanwhile, other people have, once again, graffitied the things. I guess if you need a couple of Buick valve covers, you can help yourself. There's one more building I want to look at over there, and then I'm out of here on the road. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to be able to show you much more tonight because it's getting dark. Once again, I suspect I'm going to drive all the way to Barstow and backtrack in the morning so that I can show you Baghdad Cafe, Newberry Springs, all of that stuff. There's still some juicy things. You know what it really is? I'm procrastinating going down into the city and driving in Santa Monica all the way to the ocean. If I never make it there, it's okay, as long as I've got good stuff to see in the desert. It's me, Ned Ryerson. Yes, it's Groundhog Day. I am back in Barstow, filling up the Suburban once again. Last night after Ludlow, I had to drive all the way back here because it was dark, and today I will leapfrog forward and go pick up Route 66 where I was. But what's cool is that last night when I got into town, across from my hotel, there were a ton of motorcycles, dual sports. And I went over there to look around and I put 2 and 2 together and I realized it was the Barstow to Vegas event. Barstow to Vegas was a killer desert race on motorcycles that started in 1967. And it ended up shutting down, I think, in 74 or 75 because of environmental issues. It picked back up in the early 80s as a race, stopped in 89-ish, And then it was gone for a while, and now it is back as just a road rally. It's like a group ride. It's not a race anymore. I guess they stay on roads rather than just tearing across the desert. But the heritage of that was very cool. I was happy to see it. While I'm thinking of that, I want to bring up Malcolm Smith, because he passed away just a few days before I left on this trip. Malcolm Smith was an amazing motorcycle rider. There's nothing he couldn't do on a bike. And if you've ever seen the movie On Any Sunday, you'll get a sense of this guy. And if you haven't seen it, you have to. It's amazing to watch in that movie. Guys riding for all they're worth, and he just passes them and goes off-road racing. He also started a business, Malcolm Smith Motorsports. The greatest thing is he always had a smile on his face. Now, I'm not a motorcycle guy at all, but I have to tell a story. It was the 40th anniversary of the Baja 1000. So this is 2007. And we were at an event. I was the editor of Hot Rod Magazine, and somebody introduces me to Malcolm Smith. And I go, oh, wow, because, you know, I know who he is. And I introduce myself. He says, I know who you are. Like, how does Malcolm Smith know who I am? And he said, I've been reading Hot Rod Magazine since I was a kid. And I said, I thought you were a motorcycle guy. He said, only because I couldn't afford cars. It's like, I really loved Hot Rod and all the cars and everything, but I couldn't afford it, so I got a bike. There's a bike revving in the background. And so that's how Malcolm Smith got into motorcycles. Legendary guy, look him up. Okay, as soon as this is full, I'm gonna hit the road and I will pick it back up at Pisgah Crater. Bam! This is Pisgah Crater. I bet you did not expect a volcano on this trip, but that's exactly what this is. It's about, I don't know, 2 miles south of Route 66 here. And this would be a small volcano that would sort of spit lava, you know, kind of like rather than like a big lava flow like you would see in Hawaii. And what it makes is these really porous, lightweight little rocks. And they're bigger here than they are up like north of Flagstaff at the cinder cones, but these are still called cinders. Sometimes we call them popcorn rocks when they're a little bit smaller. We used to be able to go four-wheeling out here, and these things would completely tear up tires because they are so abrasive. But man, it is fun. When you can blast around out here, it's like nothing else because it's like black sand with traction because the rocks are so big. There's also some finer sand around here. As a matter of fact, I read on Wikipedia, so take it for what it's worth, that they shot some of the Sands of Iwo Jima Clint Eastwood movie out here. They also shot an episode of Roadkill Garage and one of Roadkill. Steve Dulcich and I came out here in the vehicle known as the Off-Road Challenger. It was a dirt track car that we took and cut out the fender wells, and I think we put 32-inch tires on it. It was still two-wheel drive, but it was just this Mad Max warrior, and we came out here and blasted around. It was so much fun, right up to the point where we got caught in a sandstorm, a windstorm. We saw it coming from miles away, and it would pick up this black abrasive sand, and it was blasting us with it. It was actually a dangerous situation. It frosted all the glass on the video minivan that we had with us. It took paint off the Challenger. It was like into our skin. There's a photo of me with all of this black stuff all over my face. My eyes are bloodshot. My ears are full of it. The car ended up with sand that deep inside it. The engine was destroyed by it. It was actually pretty hairy. Another time I came here with Mike Finnegan for Roadkill, and we had the Off-Road Hornet, and that was an actual Nora race car, and we were around the backside of the volcano jumping it. So that's kind of the story here. It's just really cool. Kind of a weird natural feature. So that's Pisgah Crater. I'm gonna go back to Route 66 and hit the road for more junk hunting. You know, anything you see or read about Route 66 is just relentless with the story about how that highway was bypassed by I-40, and that's when all the businesses crashed. And so I have to include that in my video. This is a pretty blatant example. This is a neat old cafe and motel sign, and right in the background, you can see Interstate 40. And what we're driving on here is Route 66. Interestingly, that sign's arrow points across the street. So there used to be a place right there, and now there is nothing. I find it curious that back when they destroyed all those buildings, they left signs standing. I'm glad they did, but it is kind of curious. And this particular one, I haven't really stopped to look at before, and this is a stretch of desert that I've been up and down 100 times. I thought it was neat. I really, really hope Baghdad Cafe has food because I'm starving. I crossed the street from that old Motel Cafe sign because I wanted to explore and see if I could find any remnants of that over here. There's actually a lot of stuff. You look out on the desert and you think there's nothing there, there's usually remnants of mankind somewhere. Most specifically, there's some mine stuff over here, and what's strange is I can't find the big hole in the ground. There was a lot of mining throughout the Mojave. They did gold, silver, copper, zinc, all sorts of different metals, and also materials like pumice came out of here. And there was obviously a hotel here. I found a couple of things that are interesting. First, there are scattered bits of foundation everywhere. There's one big hole in the ground that kind of creeped me out. Walking around, I spotted what I'm pretty sure is a bunch of roof tiles. And then, of course, there's all the wood and some foundations here of what perhaps was a mine. Here's two interesting things. This piece right here appears at first to be a roof tile, but I'm wondering if it might have been a pipe. The inside of it is glazed, and it says on it, Pacific Alkali Products, and up at the top it says acid something, maybe acid proofed? I don't know what that is. And then over here, a piece of ceramic that looks like it could have been decorative bathroom tile. I suppose it could have been a dish, but it doesn't look that way to me. So those are a couple of neat things, and I will leave them exactly where I found them. But this was a pretty good exploration. Nothing conclusive, but I always like hunting either way. Along this stretch, there's a whole bunch of houses that are stuffed with great old cars. There's also this old gas station along here that is really neat. The pumps are still standing. It says Tony's on the building. Looks like somebody's working on their car there. Apparently that place used to be a Whiting Brothers service station. Whiting Brothers had stuff all over the Southwest at one time. I think I'm gonna pull over and see the Henning Hotel or Motel. Back there, I stopped at the Baghdad Cafe, which is a big deal if you read all the Route 66 books. It's kind of not. It's a cafe that changed its name to Baghdad Cafe to match the movie of the same name, which no one saw anyway, except for they told me that French people love it and the majority of their visitors are French. So there you have it. It's kind of weird. They have some cool signage, stickers all over the front. The people inside were really, really nice and courteous. And I see another gas station I need to check out. But yeah, Baghdad Cafe. Weird, but worth the stop. Pretty good old service station. Not awesome. Had some Cooper Tire signs on it, but they were fairly new. I'm now in Newberry Springs. Now I'm in Daggett, another big train town, and I am stopping at the Daggett Pioneer Cemetery, basically because the sign they have is really cool. Let's see what else we can see here. I like reading the old gravestones and thinking about the people and sort of getting an idea what they did based on what it says on their epitaph. That was pretty good. Now I'm headed to the town of Daggett. There's some things here that you will find in many, many tour guide books. First of which is the ski lodge house. It's one that has those sort of curly cues on the end of the roof. For some reason, that's a big deal just because it's really unusual architecture. More important to me, it has a cool old fire truck and old Ford truck in the front yard. There's also the market that was built in 1908 and an ancient hotel. And you know, they run down the list of all the famous people who've stayed there who you're supposed to be impressed by. And I always think, man, were they there for one night or what? Every tour guide does it. Now, let's wax a little bit more philosophical about the stuff that I like to see. I just came out of Daggett Cemetery, and the question that always raises in my mind is, what is the statute of limitations for digging up dead bodies? You know what I'm talking about. You go back to King Tutankhamun, we raided that guy's grave. You look at all of the artifacts that are in the Titanic, shoes and things like that, we brought them up to the surface, we put them in a museum. At what point is that not okay? Because I saw some graves out there that were from the very late 1800s, definitely in the early 1900s. I don't think it's okay to be digging that up. I don't know. I don't have the answer. It's just something for you to think about as I bring up another philosophical question, which is this right here. You know how much I love old gas stations, but when does a gas station cross the line between being cool or not? Just down the street, there's an old one that has a sign on it. I think it says Mugwumps. It's obviously been used as a business, but it's also obviously an old gas station. Probably early 60s, I'm gonna say. But then you've got this. Obviously, I'm gonna say at least in the 80s. Is it too new to be cool? Or is it neat because it has a cool old gas pump and a structure over there that's pretty run down and peeling, and that might actually be older than this building itself? I don't know. I kind of stick with the genuinely old stuff. and I'm gonna go find more of it on the junk hunt of Route 66. If the Suburban starts, and it did. I cruised past the 1908 Desert Market. It was called something else back then. Then there was also the Ancient Hotel, but my favorite part of Daggett is right here, the Daggett Garage. This building absolutely stuns me. It was built in the 1880s, the late 1880s, at a borax mine. Then it was moved to another borax mine, presumably with the 20 mule team that you've heard about. And then it was moved right here to Daggett and it became an auto shop. So it was like a mining place. At the other mine, they did locomotive repairs with it. Here it turned into an auto shop. In World War II, it was a mess hall for the local troops, and then it became an auto shop again. It says groceries down the side of it. I just can't even begin to imagine how much I want to know every little bit of history that is lost to time about this building. But it still looks fantastic. It still has lettering all over it. I absolutely love it. Here's another little fun fact about it. The very first time that Mike Finnegan and I did a road trip in his 55 Chevy known as Blasphemy, I set it up pretty much right here and got a really cool photo of that first moment of blasphemy in life. And none of that is as important as the fact that they have not one, but 2 Jeep MJs here and an Eagle station wagon. The MJ, of course, the pickup truck version of the Jeep. The Eagle, of course, the AMC version of a 4x4 passenger car. You can't lose. And I think I'm gonna head off Route 66 up to Yermo, where they also have some cool stuff, because I gotta throw some groceries down my neck. I'm starved. Man, there's some more cool stuff to see over here, and the train going by. You know what? This is like the most desert wasteland part of Route 66, and look how much there is to see, especially when you love looking at rundown old trash, which describes your host. I'm gonna go see this. On the way here, I ate at Desert Springs Bar and Grill. Recommended. Way better than fake 50s places. And by the way, Baghdad Cafe, not a cafe anymore. Now I'm in Yermo, which is north of Route 66, really off the beaten path. And for that reason, sadly, it's pretty run down. I find that the places that are most bypassed by the highway, most ignored, tend to have the coolest old stuff because nobody has torn it down and started over. Unfortunately, it leads to sad scenes like this gas station right behind me. But the reason I came here is this cool garage sign with a big arrow that stands here. For some reason, I most love, I guess, automobilia. Petroliana. That's why I like old gas stations. I also like old garages and muffler shops and radiator shops. And the garage sign that's here is really, really cool. So I'm gonna take a slow cruise through here and then cannonball back to 66 and keep going. This guy has a cool Quonset hut. These are prefab buildings that were made in World War II, and afterwards they were sold off as surplus. They're everywhere. This one looks legit. And 2 Wagoneers. On the way out of Yermo, I should also mention this is the home of Del Taco. This building right here was the original Del Taco. It's no longer a Del Taco. It's actually a pretty good burger stand, and the Del Taco that you want to eat at is the special one in Barstow with the larger tacos than ever. Surprise! It's morning and I am not at the Chevron in Barstow. I am, however, at the Harvey House in Barstow. Yep, it got to be another late night and I just cannonballed here. However, I did see everything that needs to be seen on Route 66 up to this point, so I am going to be able to carry on, which is really good news. But think about it. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, between Needles and Barstow, if you know anything about these cities, you would find that people would say it's ridiculous to spend your vacation that way, but look how much we've seen. It's great. So is this place. I told you earlier about the Harvey House that's over there in Needles. Well, this one was designed by the same guy. This one opened in 1911. It is Casa del Desierto. And it's actually really, really neat. And I found a USGS marker on the ground over there that was 1924. At the time I'm filming this, that means it's 100 years old. Probably by the time you see this, it'll be 101 years old. I just think stuff like that is neat. Being here at this Harvey House also reminds me of something I forgot to tell you in Needles, which was those Harvey girls that were the waitresses here and the hostesses. They were so popular in pop culture that there was a book about them in 1942 and a movie about them in 1946 with Judy Garland. We are on the literal wrong side of the tracks now. I'm across the tracks from Route 66. However, there is some neat stuff to see in the older area over here that I'm gonna have a look at, and then we will hit the road and find out what actually happens west of Barstow on Route 66. I always like this bridge here that goes over the wash. Has a giant rock with a water tower on it. I think how smart to put the water tower up there for killer water pressure over here. One of the things I like to think about when I'm in Barstow is Robert E. Peterson, who is the founder of Hot Rod Magazine and later Motor Trend Magazine. And he was born in East LA, but completely grew up here in Barstow. His dad was a mechanic here. And then of course he went on to become a gazillionaire in magazines and real estate. Think of the opportunities afforded to just some dusty kid out of Barstow. There is, I think, a cool junkyard over here that I haven't been to in a long time. It's Sunday, so they're probably closed, but maybe I can check it out. The other thing you'll see here is a bunch of old roadside cabin motels. Yep, here's one right here. Completely abandoned. That place makes me think there was a gas station out front of this hotel and all those individual cabins that they would rent out. That's not the only one. There's another one up here. Maybe they were all part of the same deal. See, there's those tiles I was talking about that I believe we found out in the desert when I was looking around for that old hotel. The Spanish tiles on the top, on the roof. And another old hotel on the right-hand side, the Casablanca Inn. Here's another newer looking gas station that's abandoned and completely destroyed with graffiti. How come the graffiti doesn't bother me that much when it's newer stuff? I'm such a hypocrite. Like, if somebody had graffitied something in 1910 and I saw it now, I would think it was cool. But if you graffiti something from 1910 right now, it's not cool. And if you graffiti something from 1990 right now, I don't really care. Weird. Here's the junkyard. Oh yeah, they have a lot of good stuff. I think they're closed. Ooh, they have a good motel sign too. Welcome travelers. And another one. Min, Iowa Motel. Minnesota, Iowa. Square body guy over here. Utility bed square body guy. Tin grill Dodge guy. Ooh. Tin Top Samurai guy, or was it a Tin Top? I'm not sure. Ooh, short bed like 84 Dodge. There's good stuff here. And the drive-in movie theater. Now I'm pulling into the old Skyline Drive-In on old Highway 58 on the other side of the tracks from Route 66. This opened in 1966 and it's weird. The Facebook page looks like it's still open here, but the place doesn't look that open. So I'm just not sure. They're showing that they're still having movies here. This kiosk here is really cool. I'm gonna go look around a little bit. Also on the hill right in front of me, there's a bunch of concrete, almost stair-step looking structures up the hill, almost certainly left over from mining. And of course now all graffitied up, but kind of cool. Last thing on this side of town, there's this curiosity at the side of the road that I think used to be a junkyard. It appears to be closed now. I can't find anything about it. They've got a trailer over the driveway. Obviously, I'm not trespassing, but I'm gonna have a look at some of the stuff that you can see from the highway, and then it's back to Route 66. I finally made it out of Barstow. I stuck on 66 and I have passed the little burgs of Lenwood and Hodge and ate at a pretty good cafe. And now I'm here at Elmer Long's Glass Bottle Forest. This is pretty new by Route 66 standards. Apparently he started this right around the year 2000, so it's 24, 25 years old. This guy and his dad collected all of this stuff when he was a kid. And when his dad passed away, he decided to make this tribute. Now there's tons and tons of photos and information about this out there online, but what I'm gonna do is look at the automotive spin of the stuff that's here. And of course, the big deal is, right in the middle of it all, is a Willis. And I said Willis, not Willys, CJ2A. There's also hubcaps everywhere used in creative ways, pieces of gas pumps. There's an actual back door off of some 30s or 40s car. Stop signs, street signs, this really cool traffic signal, and all sorts of other stuff to look at here. So I'm gonna wander around a little bit and once again hit the road. The thing I'm starting to fear is that I am getting closer and closer to urban mundaneness, but we'll try and find every single cool spot that we can. The exact same model of pedal car that I had as a little kid. Plus, it's sitting on a piece of a landing mat. You know what that is. In World War II, or probably actually Korea and Vietnam, when they went into some swampy area and they needed to build a landing runway, an airstrip right away, they would take this stuff and link it all together and make a big metal ground for like a mile. Neat stuff. All right, that's it for the bottle farm. I'm out. Well, it was a solid cruise after the bottle trees. I was just looking at all the roadside buildings and diners and signs. There's a lot of stuff out there that if you squint real hard, you can still see the 50s or even the 40s in the places. Some of the buildings are still there, but they've been repurposed so many times, but you can capture the shape of them and the essence of it. And there's a couple of old gas stations along the way. It was all good stuff. But then Buzzkill, Victorville, I drove through there, and I mean, the town part of it, it's traffic, urban sprawl. And then I got on the 15, Interstate 15, and man, bumper to bumper. So right now I've turned off. I'm gonna cannonball home, but by the power of movie magic, the next time you see me, I will be back on Route 66. For me, it's gonna be next weekend. For you, it's gonna be right now. I'm back, and I'm at the top of the Cajon Pass. This is the site of where the Summit Inn used to be. And they had a cool old sign, but it's now covered up with a thing because the property is for sale. Why is it for sale? The old cafe burned down in 2016, which is a bummer because it stood there since 1952. So there's really nothing to see here, but officially, I'm trying to do as much of old Route 66 as I can, so I had to be here. The problem from this point on is that there are so many different alignments of where the original highway was over different years. What I'm gonna do is continue to junk hunt. I might not be showing you all of the stuff you'll see in a typical guidebook, because what I want to see is the old cars, the old rundown buildings, the hotels, the cool signs. You know my shtick. So I'm gonna go from here and head down the Cajon Pass. Then we'll go through places like Fontana, end up in Pasadena, and if it doesn't get too hipster, we'll take this thing all the way to Santa Monica. Let's go. Now I'm rolling through San Bernardino, and I'm right on the edge of Rialto. And right here is the Wigwam Hotel with a bunch of concrete teepees. There's another one of these on Route 66 in Holbrook, Arizona. If you saw the Cars movie, the cartoon, the Cone Motel, the Traffic Cone Motel, was inspired by that. And I actually stayed there once with my wife. Kind of neat. It's actually pretty good, even though the neighborhood around it isn't the best. Well, I drove into the night because there was really nothing to see in the daylight. We're talking Rialto and Fontana and Upland and I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff all the way through Laverne. There's just nothing there. And worse than that, it is like death by 1,000 stops. The traffic lights all through Route 66 right there are like the Chinese water torture of signals. I mean, it was bad. There was really nothing to see except for I did drive past one big drive-in movie theater that's now gone. And I did eat at La Paloma, which was good. It's been there since 1966. It's a good Mexican restaurant. But this finds me this morning in Monrovia next to this very cool former gas station and garage. And we're gonna cruise on. The first thing that I'm gonna see around the corner is the Aztec Hotel. It's turning 100 years old in 2025. And the place has gone through a lot of drama over the years. It's never really been successful. It's been foreclosed on a bunch of times, but it looks very cool. The irony is that it's in a style that is called Mayan Revival, yet it's called the Aztec. The Aztecs and the Mayans are really not the same thing at all. But in 1925, it didn't matter because America. We just didn't care. I'm gonna hop in the Suburban, but first, I need to check out this Cherokee that just happens to be for sale right here. And if it's the right price, you're gonna see that on a future road trip on the channel. I'm looking at this thing and loving it. It's a 1974 Jeep Cherokee, which, as you know, is the two-door version of the Wagoneer. And it's an early one that is not wide track. It doesn't have the extra fender flares, and I like that. And it's a stick. It could be a 3-speed, it'd be better if it was a 4-speed, and unbelievably, it's also a V8, a 360 AMC motor. The fact that it has a stick and that it's an early one means it has a Dana 20 transfer case, and of course it's got Dana 44s front and rear, 373 gears, power steering. It's got disc brakes on the front. It appears to be all original paint except for the driver's door. I love this thing, but I've called the guy twice and texted him twice and can't get a hold of him. Now I'm rolling down Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena. The Rose Parade comes right down this path. Now, Pasadena's always been a higher end community, but they have a big respect for their history. So there's a lot of old buildings here that haven't been torn down, that have been repurposed. What is that right there? What's it say? Surplus. That's a cool sign. So there's a bunch of cool signs like that. I'm not gonna find hardcore car stuff here, but I think what I'm gonna do is drive as far as I can and show you the neat stuff that I do find. City College. This is where the Van Halens went to school. This morning I ate at that Andy's coffee shop. It's really cool inside. Obviously been there a long time, really low horseshoe counter and all that stuff. But let me tell you, they are as good at biscuits and gravy as I am in astrophysics. They have no idea what they're doing. Who puts turkey gravy on a biscuit? Not good. You know what though? The cream cheese and bacon omelet was pretty good. I'll give them that. I zigzagged my way through Pasadena. This is where there are a whole lot of different alignments of Route 66. In different years, they just moved it all over the place. One goes downtown, down the 110. I don't want to do any of that. And so I am going through Highland Park, where I am right now. They've got some pretty cool old signage here. And of course, Chicken Boy, which to be honest, I find a little bit disturbing. From here on, it's going to be cannonballing out to the ocean. I'm going to Santa Monica, and I expect to see less and less car stuff, but you just got to put yourself in a different mindset. This isn't the desert anymore. This is the hardcore city, but what you can find is those neat old signs. I've taken Sunset Boulevard to Santa Monica Boulevard, and from here, it's a shot all the way out to the ocean. Do you say Route 66 or Route 66? See, if I'm gonna say go on Google Maps, I'm gonna say route yourself, but then I would say Route 66, and I think it's because of the song Get Your Kicks on Route 66, which by the way, is by Bobby Troop. And Bobby Troop is the same guy who played Dr. Joe Early on the Emergency TV show. And by the way, he was married to Julie London, who played Dixie McCall, the nurse on Emergency, which is kind of weird because Julie London's prior husband was Jack Webb, who was the producer of Emergency and also Dragnet and also Adam 12. And Adam 12 starred Martin Milner, who was in what TV show? Route 66. See how I wrapped that all up? And now, let me time-lapse you all the way to the ocean. And I made it. This is the very end of Route 66 in California. And no, I am not at the Santa Monica Pier. That is sort of the tourist attraction version of the end of Route 66. It actually ends at the intersection of Lincoln and Olympic, which is where I am right now. There's actually a cool old diner here, which is now a Mel's. Think of everywhere that I've been on this trip. From the desert communities to sort of the rundown desert communities, going into, man, just the mini mall nightmare, and then into the nice area of Pasadena, then into sort of the dingy hipster areas, Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, and finally right here at the end. Do me a favor, if you dug this, share it with a friend. That's the most important thing you can do for me. You could also buy merch. The link is in my description, and I will see you next time on the David Freiburger channel.